All right, so this is our last video on a new topic for the year. Next week we're going to be looking at reviewing some very important topics that we're going to need to make sure that we remember moving into next year. So our last topic is writing system of equations, and that is from word problems. So our last class I posted a video on how to write equations. So this time we're going to write a system of equations, which means there's going to be more than one equation. So we're going to read number one together, and then we'll talk about how we can look at the different pieces of this word problem. So it says the admission fee at a small fair is $1.50 for children and $4 for adults. $5,050 is collected from the 2,200 people who entered the fair. How many children and how many adults attended the fair? So the first thing we want to do is figure out what is the unknown. So we always have to identify what our variables are. And so if we look at the question part, we notice that it's asking for how many children and how many adults went to the fair. So that's going to be our variable. On the side here, I'm going to use C for the number of children. And I'm going to use A for the number of adults. So I've just defined my variables. The next thing I need to do is go back and read my problem and figure out what type of units they're giving me. So if I notice, it says the admission fee for a small fair is, for the fair is $1.50 for each child and $4 for each adult. So you notice I highlighted the $1.50 in green and the $4 in green, and we're going to look for any other number that has that same unit. So dollars. The last bit of information I have is that they collected $5,050. So I'm also going to use green to highlight that information. And we're going to use that to write our first equation. So we're going to ignore the fact that there are 2,200 people at the fair and only focus in on the money, the dollars. So I know it costs $1.50 for each child, but I don't need to write that out in words. I decided that C was going to be the number of children. So $1.50 C plus, because in addition to children going, adults also went. But adults paid $4. So $4 for each adult A would raise $5,050. So that is our first equation. The second thing we need to do is figure out what other information I can use to write my second equation. And the last number we haven't used is that 2,200 people went to the fair. Now, we already know what type of people went to the fair. That was either a child or an adult. So I know that some number of children went to the fair and some number of adults went to the fair, and a total of 2,200 people went. So when you're writing a system of equations, it's super important to make sure that all of your units are in the same equation together. So again, the green equation showing you dollars. We don't write the dollar sign. Remember, we don't use units in the equation, but they have to make sure that they're all part of one equation. The number of children that went, the number of adults went, will give you the total number of people that went to your fair. So for today's practice, you don't need to worry about solving anything. All you have to do is worry about writing these equations. So we're going to take a look at example number 2. We're going to take the same approach. We're going to try to figure out what two things I don't know. So what are my unknowns? And then we'll figure out what type of units we're given. So here it says Alice spent $131 on books. Paperback books cost $15 and hardcover books cost $28. She bought a total of 7 books. How many of each type of book did Alice buy? So again, in this question, we're looking for what types of books she bought. Well, she bought paperback books and she bought hardcover books. And now remember, for your variables, I'm using the first letter of each of these, but you can always use your X and Y. I'm going to keep going with P for the number of paperback books, and then H for the number of hardcover. So again, P for the number of paperback books and H for the number of hardcover books. So let's dissect our units. I see dollar signs right off the bat. So I see Alice spent a total of $131. I also know that paperback books cost $15 and hardcover books cost $28. I'm not going to circle the 7 because that 7 has a different unit. That would be 7 books, so that's a whole different color. So we're going to put together our first equation using all of our green highlighter. That's all of our dollars. So it says here that she spent a total of $131 on books, but we don't know which book she bought. I do know that when she bought a paperback book, it costs her $15. So $15 for each paperback book. And it cost her $28 for each hardcover book. And she spent a total of $131. We're going to do the same thing now, but we're going to use just the 7 books. Again, we don't know which one she bought, but we know the only 2 possible books she could have purchased were paperback or hardcover. So she bought paperback books, and she bought hardcover books, and she bought a total of 7 books. So 2 things to note. You have to make sure that both of your equations are using the same variables, right here and here, and you have to make sure that your units are in the same equations. So make sure that you use your colors to help organize. The quizzes is actually color coordinated for you to try to help you out in the same way that we just did. If you have any questions, please send me an email. And then today you're just working on your quizzes.